Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you'll head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. Your Colts are 4-1, tied with the Jacksonville Jaguars at 4-1 atop the AFC South. Who would have thought that 5 weeks into the season, the AFC South would be the only division in the NFL to have two teams with 4 wins or more? Incredible. Maybe the AFC South is good. It's not. The Texans and the Titans have a lot of work to do before I believe either one of them are good. Anyway, I want to go back to Sunday. Colts host the Raiders, beat them 40-6. Could have been worse, but they didn't have a kicker. By the way, we still do not know who the Colts are going to bring in to be a kicker. They didn't have anyone at practice yesterday to try out for the job or compete for the job or anything like that. So still waiting to hear about what the Colts are going to do about their kicking situation going forward. But they have much bigger problems. As I said yesterday, Spencer Schrader getting hurt, it's no good. But this Colts offense has been so efficient. I mean, Spencer Schrader's only attempted 2 kicks all year from outside of 50 yards. Everything else has been inside of 50, and the vast majority of NFL kickers from inside of 50 yards, even the ones currently not on teams, the vast majority of them from inside of 50 yards, they're not going to miss. It's just the reality of it. Something that is much more concerning for me is this Colts pass rush. I know the Colts had 4 sacks on Sunday, but I didn't think that their pass rush was consistent. I'm going to have Zach Hicks on at 11, and this is going to be one of the major things that we discuss. Part of that was it felt like the Raiders were going to a lot of quick game, just like a lot of quick, short passes because they know that their starting left tackle was out. That obviously had an impact. But on third and gotta throw it, third and long, 3rd and 8 or more, the Colts couldn't consistently get home with 4. It's the reality of it. It seemed like they had to run a stunt or bring a blitz to get home against a bad Raiders offensive line without their starting left tackle. And I thought that after the Rams game, because they go on the road to LA, I thought we were going to have, back-to-back weeks of the Colts pass rush being impactful for the full game. And I don't really think that we got that. We didn't get that. There is no, I think about it. It's just a very simple fact. The Colts pass rush wasn't good enough, again, against the Raiders. And once again, I know 4 sacks, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff. But part of that, the biggest part of that, was Leatu Latu wasn't very good against the Raiders. He didn't jump off the screen like he did against the Rams. I mean, every pass rush against the Rams from Latu felt like it was successful. Bull rushing, swiping hands off of him, ripping through, whatever pass rush move he got to, just kind of felt like it worked. And then against the Raiders, for some reason, none of it worked. Felt like he wasn't in the backfield at all. And the Colts have many issues, especially on defense. Many issues on defense. I don't know how the Colts are going to fix their problem at linebacker. I don't really know what they're going to do with that second corner slot, even though Mekhi Blackman and Jonathan Edwards were both significantly better than what Xavier Howard was. But finding a way to get Leatu Latu to just consistently get to the quarterback, that seems like the obvious answer for them to fix this Colt, for them to fix their pass rush. The Colts are 4-1. And this team is very clearly good. Went into that quite a bit yesterday. This Colts team is good. They can probably win a playoff game. That feels like the ceiling. And when I say that, the majority of people, I think, would point to Daniel Jones and say, you think that the Colts can only win a playoff game because Daniel Jones is limited. That is not the case. I think Jalen Hurts is limited. And the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl last year in very dominant fashion. The Baltimore Ravens won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer as their starting quarterback. They won one with Joe Flacco back in the day. Eli Manning and the Giants won 2 Super Bowls. And I'm sure that you can find many more examples of these limited NFL quarterbacks winning Super Bowls, guys that we wouldn't say were quote-unquote elite. I'd put Daniel Jones in that Jalen Hurts tier of quarterbacks as of right now. Clearly can play, but there's clearly some limitations. Daniel Jones is clearly not Josh Allen. He's very clearly not Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Matthew Stafford or anybody like that. But when surrounded by the proper pieces, you can win playoff games with Daniel Jones. And I think offensively, the Colts have all that they need to do that right now. When I look at the Eagles last year, they were excellent at running back. They were excellent at wide receiver. They were excellent at tight end. And they had an excellent offensive line. When I look at the Colts right now, they are excellent at running back. Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the NFL to start the season. They are excellent at wide receiver. It looks a little different than Philly. Philly's got 2 studs and, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And then, there's a pretty sizable drop-off. You're throwing to guys like Jahan Dotson and dudes like that. For the Colts, it's like, no, like they've just got 4 really good receivers that all bring something a little bit different to the table. And then you look at the offensive line last year. The Eagles had arguably the best offensive line in football. Lane Johnson, I'm going to butcher his name, the left tackle, the big Samoan dude, I'm blanking on his name right now, Landon Dickerson, like really good offensive line talent in Philly last year. And Colts, same thing. Bernard Raymond's not, like a tier 1 left tackle. He's a tier 2 guy. He's not, Tristan Wirfs or Lane Johnson, who I know is a right tackle, but still, he's not Penei Sewell. He's none of those guys. He's like a level below. Quentin Nelson, probably going to make the Hall of Fame as a left guard. Tanner Bortolini's been really good. Matt Gonsalves has been really good. And Braden Smith has been really solid over on the right side. So it's an excellent offensive line. It's deep. They're deep at receiver. Tyler Warren, he's been the best receiving tight end in the NFL to start the year. He leads all tight ends in receiving yards. So the offensive line's good. The receivers are good, and the running game is excellent. The Colts offense around Daniel Jones is perfectly constructed to compete, and we've seen it, right? They've scored 40 points in 2 games, and I understand that they were against the Titans and the Raiders, but teams don't score 40 points in the NFL. Like, that's not a thing, okay? 30 is a lot. 40? Whew. Then you're really, really going. The issue is the defensive side of the football. In order to win a Super Bowl, in order to get to a Super Bowl, you have to play these elite quarterbacks at some point. For the Eagles last year, they not only had to play Patrick Mahomes, but they also had to play the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford. If you're in the AFC, this year is a little different because Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson currently look like they're going to miss the playoffs. With that being said, they're still probably going to have to play Mahomes, and I get it. The Chiefs are 2-3. Do not write them off. Okay, the Chiefs are going to be fine. You're still going to have to play Josh Allen and the Bills. And in order to beat those very elite quarterbacks, you have to have an elite pass rush. All of those teams that I mentioned that had tier 2 quarterbacks and were able to win a Super Bowl, they all had these dominant defensive lines. Michael Strahan, 2007 with the Giants, kind of led the charge for that very nasty front four. Justin Tuck in 2012 with the Giants. He was kind of the leader of that defensive line. We saw, Jalen Carter and Josh Sweat and all the dudes up front that the Philadelphia Eagles had last year. The Ravens defense, led by Terrell Suggs, is kind of that main pass rusher for them. When you look at the teams that have won a Super Bowl with a, not elite, not top tier quarterback in the NFL, they have a pass rush because that is how you beat these elite quarterbacks. Say it every year. If you want to beat Patrick Mahomes, you better be able to get home with 4. It's like, really? That is the magic sauce to beating any elite quarterback. And when I look at the Colts, they don't have that right now. They played Bo Nix, and they gave up 28 points. And Bo Nix isn't even an elite quarterback. They played Matthew Stafford, and they gave up 27. This defense is good enough to hold, Geno Smith to 6 points. This defense is good enough to hold, the Titans and that horrific offense to 21 points, or 20 points, excuse me. This defense is good enough to hold, a Tua Tagovailoa offense to 8 points. But the two decent or better quarterbacks they've seen, they've had their way. And it comes back to this pass rush. That is the one thing, or one of the things, because there's multiple things, I think, that keep this Indianapolis Colts team from outside of that bubble of teams that can legitimately win the Super Bowl. And look, if you had Mahomes or Josh Allen or one of these, super elite quarterbacks, then they'd be in it. But they don't have that. And so the other side of the football, the defense, just has to be better than what it is right now for the Colts, I think, to really, truly compete for a Super Bowl. Right now, I think the ceiling of the Indianapolis Colts is they win a playoff game. And then they see Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Bo Nix again maybe, or Justin Herbert, whoever it winds up being, and that'll be the game that they lose simply because they can't get home with 4. Now, there's 2 ways for the Colts to be able to kind of find a way to move up and to actually have a pass rush. And the most obvious thing is Leatu Latu has to find a way to be more consistent, getting after the passer. 15th overall pick in the draft. First defensive player taken. He's had one game in his career where it's like, wow, that guy looks like a dude who was taken in the first round. And you have to have him develop, because if you blitz any of these elite quarterbacks, then they just tear you to pieces. The best quarterbacks in the NFL eviscerate defenses that blitz them. It is the one thing that they all have in common. Some of them are super athletic. Some are statues. Whatever. The one thing they all have in common, when you blitz them, they beat you 9 times out of 10. The way to beat great quarterbacks in the playoffs is to have a great pass rush. We've seen it time and time again throughout history. Or you have to also have a great quarterback yourself. Like, one of those 2 things you have to have. And the Colts, sadly, do not have either. This year's been a lot of fun. It's only week 5. There's a real world where we look up and, 2 or 3 weeks, and Leatu Latu has really kind of come to life, and he looks like the guy that we saw on the road against the Rams. And if that happens, then watch out for the Colts. Seriously, because DeForest Buckner on the interior is a good player, and, even though he's a little older, he's not as great as he used to be, but he's still a good player. Grover Stewart, I know he hurt his bicep, but when he's on the field, he's a pretty impactful guy. The other side, whether it's, Abukum, Kwity Paye, who didn't play at all against the Raiders, or Tyquan Lewis, those are all I think, kind of the same dude when it comes to rushing the passer. So they just need one guy to elevate his game. And it should be Leatu Latu. We'll see if he can do it or not. If they don't feel like he can, they could always go and make a trade. The trade deadline for the NFL, I believe it's week 8. I think they pushed it back, though. I think that happened last year. The trade deadline is November 4th at 4 p.m. So that would be week November 4th. Yeah, that's just after week 9. That is the Tuesday after week 9. So, like I said, we'll see if Leatu Latu can figure it out. If not, then I do think that there's a world where the Colts go and they make a trade. Someone just asked me, Timothy Bowman, asking over on X, if the Colts should package two really young players together to go get Max Crosby. I'm actually going to talk about that in 4 minutes.
dockets at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Zach Hicks joins me here in about 40 minutes. We're going to continue talking Colts. Thank you for tuning into the show, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. And as always, if you want a little bit more from me, you can go check out the My Take Is YouTube page. So the Colts trades, what could they do? Timothy Bowman over on X, if you want to get at me on X, at _ Jonathan Smith. If you have trade ideas, send them my way. In the YouTube chat, you can tweet them at me as well. Timothy Bowman saying, should we package Anthony Richardson and A.D. Mitchell for Mason Crosby? No. For a couple of reasons. One, the biggest reason, Max Crosby's way too expensive. He just signed a big deal in the offseason, 3 years, $106 million, 91.5 of that is guaranteed. He's making $35.5 million a year. I don't think that the Colts have the cap space in order to be able to pay him. And if you do pay him, then, you don't then get to address all the other issues of this Colts team. So I don't think that he's in play, but I do have some guys who I think are a little bit cheaper, all those things. Let's start at corner because everyone's caught up on edge rusher. I am not convinced that Jalen Jones, when he comes back, Mekhi Blackman or Jonathan Edwards are going to be the solution at corner for the Indianapolis Colts for the rest of this season. Trevon Diggs, Cowboys corner, I do think is a guy that the Colts could go out and add, a guy who led the NFL in interceptions. I think that was 3 years ago now. Just a guy who just has a tendency to find a way to make plays. Right? This is a guy who's been all-pro before. He's dealt with some injuries here and there. He's been in and out of the Cowboys lineup this year. He's only 27. And some people would say, well, Jonathan, if he's in and out of the Cowboys lineup, then how good could he be? And I would counter with Matt Eberflus is his defensive coordinator. The fact that Matt Eberflus doesn't want to play Trevon Diggs makes me like him more. So it could also be a system fit thing as well. Okay. And if Jerry Jones is willing to move Micah Parsons, he's probably willing to move Trevon Diggs. Okay, the Colts desperately need a second corner. I think Trevon Diggs would be a guy who fits that well. And that could be your solution to the pass rush as well if you go out and you add a corner. Because right now, offenses are just kind of picking on whoever Charvarius Ward isn't defending. And if you get a second guy over there who's just, solid, average, maybe a little above average, then maybe that gives, Leatu Latu in this Colts defensive line the extra 0.2 of a second that they need to actually get home. So I do think instead of an edge rusher, a corner could be in play for the Colts. Greg Newsome II, Browns corner. You probably don't know who he is because Ward, I'm blanking on his first name. Ward, the Browns' best corner. He's been one of the best DBs in football for quite some time. Greg Newsome's the other guy. He's in the last year of his deal, only his fifth year in the NFL, and he's just as consistent as they come. Okay, he's not going to have a ton of interceptions, but he's going to be where he needs to be. He's going to stay pretty healthy. He's a good player, right? Only 25 years old, so on the younger side as well. He's in the final year of his deal. The Browns need as many picks and young players as they can get. If the Colts were to move Anthony Richardson, the Browns would make a lot of sense for that because they're just stockpiling as many quarterbacks as they can for some reason. But that being said, they did just draft Dylan Gabriel. We'll see how good or bad he is as the rest of the year unfolds. So I do think that that's a guy who the Colts could go at as well if they wanted. Now we get to the edge rushers. I think Bradley Chubb of the Miami Dolphins would be in play because the Dolphins are bad. That's, one of the biggest things here. They're going to be looking to get rid of guys, clear out some cap space, do all those things. And this is a guy in Bradley Chubb who's had really impressive years. He is nowhere near as expensive as Max Crosby is. He's like half the price. Okay, he's half the price. He's not as big of a name. Part of that's because he plays for the Dolphins and they're just not very good. But this is a guy who, when he's been healthy, has been very dominant. His rookie year puts up 12 sacks, right? And then he's dealt with a lot of injuries since then. In 2023, the last time he was healthy and he played in 16 of 17 games, he logged 11 sacks. And then he tears his ACL and he didn't play last year. This year, through 5 games, he's got 4 sacks. Right? This is a guy who can really get after the quarterback. The question for him is health. I think that's a guy that the Colts could go out and add if they wanted to bring in a little bit more of a pass rush. I think the guy on the other side of the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Phillips, I think this is another guy who would make a lot of sense for the Colts. He's a little bit younger. He's dealt with some injuries, tore his ACL. So there's some issues there. Only 1 sack so far this year, but just a slightly younger player I would kind of prefer, cheaper as well. Trey Hendrickson, this would be the big fish. He needs no introduction. This dude is an absolute stud. He's just stuck on a terrible, terrible Cincinnati Bengals team. It's just the reality of it. Ever since they just moved him to straight up edge, he's been a monster. 2020, 13.5 sacks in 15 games. 2021, 14 sacks in 16 games. 2022, down year, 8 sacks in 15 games. And then 2023, he logged 17.5 sacks in 17 games. And then 2024, he logged 17.5 sacks in 17 games. And then so far this year, he's got 4 sacks in 5 games. Dude's an absolute monster. He is looking for a contract extension, though. He's looking to get paid. I don't know if the Colts could afford to, give him the contract extension that he wants. Probably going to be north of $30 million. They have to keep money left over, obviously, to extend Daniel Jones. If that winds up being something that they want to do at some point. So offensively, the Colts are fine. All of their needs are on defense. They need a real edge. They need a second corner, and they need a linebacker. And I didn't list any linebackers on here. I didn't. All right, I've talked about the We Like Our Guys position group of the year for the Colts. And that is obviously the linebackers, right? Because that's what Chris Ballard said all year. We drafted E.J. Speed in the 5th round, and we developed him. And Zaire Franklin was a 7th round pick, and we developed him. That's what we do. We draft and we develop linebackers. All that good stuff from Chris Ballard right there. And that just hasn't happened this year. Zaire Franklin's been as average as he's ever been. And then all the guys that they've put beside him has just been a revolving door. With that being said, I didn't include any specific player because any linebacker that the Colts decide to trade for would be an upgrade. Linebacker by committee, that's not exactly the position group that I want to have a committee going on for. Running back by committee, cool. Receiver by committee, sounds good. You want to rotate edge rushers in and out? All right, that's fine. Don't do that with my linebackers, though. Don't do that. I also want to propose another idea that Colts fans are not going to like, but I just tell the truth. That's just what I do. I also think it's very possible that the Colts don't make a trade. And this is not me setting up to take a shot at Chris Ballard and his lack of aggressiveness. I don't know if the Colts need to make a trade. Say, well, Jonathan, but they need all these things. I know they do. They need all these things. They aren't one piece away. If the Colts were to go out and make a trade for Trey Hendrickson, They bring him in, and he continues to be a stud. The Colts are still probably a team that's going to win 12 or 13 games, and they're still probably a team that could win a playoff game and then lose. Because this Colts run defense isn't very good, and bringing in a pass rusher doesn't really help you fix that issue. The Colts linebackers would still be arguably the worst linebacking group in the NFL. Bringing in a pass rusher like Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby doesn't really fix that issue. They'd still have a major hole at their cornerback number 2 slot. It doesn't fix all of their issues. It's not like they're the Green Bay Packers, who before this year had a quarterback that they really liked, good wide receivers, a good running back, and a good offensive line. And then you looked at their defense, and it's like, yeah, I like the linebackers, and the secondary's pretty good. The Packers were only missing a pass rusher. And so it made sense for them to trade, some picks and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons, because the one thing that they were missing was a pass rusher. The Colts are missing like 3 things. And I don't think that they need to trade away a bunch of stuff for 3 players, especially when I know Daniel Jones is really good right now, and I'm about to sound like a hater. I don't want to sound like a hater, but this is just kind of how it is. It's only been 5 games. We can look up in 4 weeks, and Daniel Jones could regress a little bit. That's possible. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's still very much a possibility for them. Okay, that's just the reality of it. So, the Colts could make a trade. I don't think it'll be as big or as flashy as people want for it to be. But with that being said, I mean, we'll see what they do. Let's be honest. It's Chris Ballard. They're not going to make a trade. They're not. I think that they're just going to enjoy not being average this year. I think that they're going to win, their 10 or 11, maybe 12 games. They're going to like not being in the mix. They're going to like being solidified. I think they're going to enjoy that this year. And then, after they get a full 16 game or 17 games and a playoff game, to look at their roster and to look at how they measure up in the actual playoffs, then we'll start to see them maybe make some tweaks. Maybe they make a trade in the offseason. Maybe they make a trade or maybe they become a little more aggressive going and looking at their free agents. We'll see what they end up doing, but I'm not convinced that we're going to see them make a midseason trade. I think they're very comfortable where they're at right now, and we'll see kind of how things progress from there. Colts rookies, there's 7 of them, 8 of them maybe, a lot of them. There's a lot of Colts rookies this year, and I think that this draft class has the potential to be one of the better draft classes that Chris Ballard has put together. Tyler Warren, he's been spectacular. He's a smart player. He's a physical player. He's a tough player. I know that he's smart because they've lined him up all over the field, and he's just kind of been like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. He's got multiple rushing touchdowns. He's got a receiving touchdown. He leads all tight ends in receiving yards so far this season. He was an excellent first-round pick by Chris Ballard and the rest of this Colts team. JT Tuimoloau, not super convincing, everything that he's done so far, but, he's got to find a way to be a little bit better. In the games that he's been available in, only 3 of them, he's only played 1/5 of the possible snaps. He's only got 2 tackles. Amidst all those snaps, he's hardly played, and that's a little disappointing when you consider the fact that he was a top 50 pick. You would just kind of expect for those guys to play a little bit more than, what JT Tuimoloau has played. And I just kind of expected more from him. The 3rd-round pick, Justin Wally, was supposed to be cornerback number 2. And, that didn't happen because he tore his ACL in training camp. And the Colts clearly miss him. If the Colts don't or decide to not make a trade for a corner, that wouldn't be surprising because they clearly like Wally and what he did in camp. So maybe he kind of helps solve one of the issues that the Colts have. Like the Colts aren't one player away from a Super Bowl. They're probably like four: an edge rusher, a defensive tackle, a corner, and a linebacker. So maybe he solves that cornerback issue next year. We'll see. Jalen Travis was their 4th-round pick. He's a backup offensive tackle. He's played in every game for the Colts. I hope he doesn't have to start one and take real significant snaps. And that's not necessarily a knock on him. It's more about the rest of like Braden Smith and Bernard Raymond or Ryman are playing really well right now. DJ Giddens, he was the running back that the Colts took in the 5th round out of Kansas State. He's barely played. I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, Jonathan Taylor's been a stud, and he's not just a guy who, can carry the football anymore. Like he's a guy who can pick up blitzes, and he's a guy who can, not only pick up blitzes, but he can obviously carry the football, right? He's leading the league in rushing and all those things. So, with Giddens, like they don't need him on 3rd downs. When he has been in on 3rd downs, like he's missed some blitz pickups. When he's ran the ball, it's looked very normal. Then again, not like a super great sample size there. 18 carries for 66 yards on the season. So once again, not really a huge sample size. Tim Smith hasn't played a snap all year. Defensive lineman that the Colts took in the 6th round out of Alabama. And then their 7th-round pick, Hunter Wohler, he got hurt during training camp as well. He's out for the season. That was another guy that they were kind of hoping was going to be able to play for them a little bit. So far, I still think it's pretty up in the air on this Colts draft. And a large part of that is just because if Wally and Wohler end up being good and you walk out of this draft class with a guy who might be the best tight end in football at some point in his career, a guy in Justin Wally who can be a good, solid starting corner, and if Hunter Wohler can carve out a role as well, then like you took 7 guys, 3 of them found a role, then like I think that's a pretty good draft class. And then if JT Tuimoloau figures it out as well, then that's 4 out of I think like 7 guys that the Colts took. That's a really good hit rate if it happens. Many games still need to be played for us to figure out if that's going to happen or not. But I do think that this has the potential, because we need more data. This has the potential to be one of the better Chris Ballard draft classes. And I hope it is, because I want the Colts to be good. As I said, they've got some holes, their offense. And because of that, I think there are 9 teams better than the Colts. I'll tell you who those 9 teams are in 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Yesterday on the Dan Dockett Show, Dan asked me who I thought, what teams I thought were better than the Colts. And I hadn't really looked into it. So last night I was like, you know what? Like, let me sit down and really kind of work through this. And I think there are 9 teams. And some of them are very easy to explain. Others, I probably have to defend my stance a little bit. The Buffalo Bills, I think, are better than the Colts because the Bills have Josh Allen and the Colts do not. Quarterback's the most important position on the field. If you have the better one, then you're probably the better team. Joey Bosa has had a pretty solid season for them off the edge in terms of creating a pass rush. When Ed Oliver comes back, their defense will be much improved. I like Matt Milano at linebacker. I have questions about some of their corners, but once again, they have Josh Allen. They are the best team in the AFC through the first 5 weeks. I don't care that they lost to the Patriots, who are kind of tough, by the way, at home. The Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, Jonathan, the Kansas City Chiefs are 2-3. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs also have Patrick Mahomes. I saw him beat the Ravens and the Bills in the playoffs last year with an offensive guard having to play tackle and his best wide receiver being Juju Smith-Schuster and 35-year-old Travis Kelce. Okay, I mean, seriously, like the Chiefs roster, I think, is better this year than it was last year. They've got a lot of speed at receiver. When Rashee Rice comes back, that is going to really elevate them. Okay, the one thing that has to happen that hasn't really happened, Chris Jones has to be Chris Jones. He's got like 1 sack through their first 5 games. And so he's got to figure it out. And once he does, then I think we'll really start to see this Chiefs team come around a little bit. Here's the first one that I think is going to really make people upset. And I know what you're going to say. I think the Denver Broncos are better than the Colts. And I say that and they're like, oh, the Colts beat the Broncos. How can you say that? I would also say that Penn State's better than UCLA. And I don't think people would really disagree with me there, even though UCLA beat Penn State. I know the Colts beat the Broncos. I also know that the better team doesn't always win. Okay? But we all know as well that the Colts caught a bit of a break in that game. They did. I've watched so much football this year. I've seen one leveraging penalty called all year, and it was that one. It's the only one that I've seen. Okay? Their defense is as good as it was advertised in the offseason. Again, I know that the Colts beat them, but again, the better team doesn't always win, and the Colts caught quite a break to win that one. So I would say that the Broncos are better than the Colts. I would argue that the Eagles are better than the Colts. They are the reigning Super Bowl champions, and they might have the best roster in the NFL. They've had some rough patches on offense to start the year, new play caller, all those things. Kellen Moore left, right? He's the head coach in New Orleans now. So they've had some rough patches. They're yet to play a full 4 quarters, and they're 4-1. Like, they'll have like a quarter where they look really dominant, or that first half against Denver on Sunday. But then there's always like a stretch where it's like, they don't look very good here. And they're still 4-1 in spite of those stretches. So I don't really have much of a doubt about it. Like, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to be fighting to win another Lombardi at the end of the season. I think the Detroit Lions are better than the Colts. They scored 13 points week 1 against the Packers, and everyone freaked out. Oh, they don't have Ben Johnson anymore. Aaron Glenn's gone. Oh, the coordinators. What are they going to do? And ever since then, they've been one of the best teams in the NFL. They've scored more points than any other team in football, period. Even including that week 1 game against the Packers where they only scored 13 points. They lead the NFL in scoring. It's an excellent roster on both sides of the ball. Both coordinators have done an excellent job early on in the year. And you know that Coach Campbell is always going to have those guys right and ready to go. So I do think that the Lions are better than the Colts. The Green Bay Packers, before the season, everyone loved the Packers. Couldn't get people to stop talking about the Packers because they made that trade for Micah Parsons. And then the Packers beat the Lions, and they held the Lions to 13 points. And, oh, man, the Packers are unbeatable. Packers are the best team in football. And then they lost to the Browns, and then they tied with the Cowboys, so they're 2-1-1. They had a bye week on Sunday. And everyone's down on them. We went from, the Cowboys are the best. Excuse me. The Packers are the best. To, man, the Packers aren't very good. That's not what people are saying, but you see what I mean. Right? There's just been quite the swing. I'm telling you, they're still an excellent team. The defense has been incredible. The offense is going to be fine. Okay, Matt LaFleur is going to figure it out. Jordan Love's a second half of the year demon, right? Like once for some reason, like week 9 hits, Toyotathon begins, and Jordan Love's like, all right, let's get it rolling here. So they'll be fine. I also think that they're better than the Colts. The Buccaneers, I also think they're better than the Colts. They are just a slightly better version of them. It's a really good roster around a quarterback that's somewhat limited, even though I will say that Baker Mayfield is better than Daniel Jones. They're incredibly banged up, and it just hasn't mattered. Baker Mayfield's the MVP of the season so far. There's injuries all over the place, and he just keeps making every play necessary for them to win. Once they get healthy, they'll be an even tougher out than they already are. Secondaries are shaking in their boots at the idea of having to defend Mike Evans and Mecca Ibuka and Chris Godwin. Like, good luck. Good luck dealing with that. Okay, so the Buccaneers, I would argue, are better than the Colts. The Seattle Seahawks. I know they're 3-2. I don't really care. When you look at their 2 losses, one came on a last-second field goal against the Buccaneers, who are 4-1, and they lost to the 49ers on a weird last-second touchdown that Brock Purdy threw. Their defense is amongst the best in the NFL. They have a good offensive line. Sam Darnold he's ripping it, man. I mean, he's playing so well right now. They've got really good weapons. Jackson Smith-Njigba is an absolute stud. I mean, like, that dude's just so talented. Can line up anywhere, just always finds a way to get open. And then after the catch, he's very explosive. Cooper Kupp, he's still got it. I love Seattle's tight ends. They're both big and athletic, and they can both block. Really, really good offensive team. And then defensively, when they're healthy, they're a little banged up right now. When they're healthy, it's one of the best defenses in the NFL. They also remind me of just a better version of the Colts. And they're a better version of the Colts because their defense is significantly better than what the Colts currently have going on. The last team that I would argue is better than the Colts is the Los Angeles Rams. I know they're 3-2. Don't care. They blew a big lead to the Eagles, and they lost a weird game to the 49ers where if Kyron Williams just holds on to the football, then they probably win that game. Okay? I love their pass rush. I love their front seven just in general. Okay? But aside from that, aside from the love that I have for their front seven, they probably rush the passer as well as any other team in the NFL. They need to get a little better at corner. I was talking about the Colts earlier, maybe making some trades for Trevon Diggs or Greg Newsome. Throw the Rams in that hat as well because they do need to get a little better at corner. But like I said, love the pass rush. Aside from corner, I really like their defense. And then offensively, I mean, where do you want to go? Like they're only coached by Sean McVay, one of the better offensive minds in football. They've only got Matthew Stafford, a guy who's who should be a Hall of Famer. Like they only have that guy, calling signals for them and so on. So it's a really good team, top to bottom. Haven't even gotten to Puka Nacua, who, like Jonathan Taylor, has clearly been the best player at his position so far this year. And they're just a lot of fun to watch right now. And once again, I think that they're better than the Colts. So those are the 9 teams. I think the Colts are pretty firmly the 10th best team in football. If you wanted to tell me that, if you wanted to move them up a spot or two, say, I'd put them above the Broncos because they beat them. Like, okay, like I get that. I would disagree, obviously. But, I would understand that if you want to say, Jonathan, the Chiefs are 2-3, and out of principle, I just can't rank a 2-3 team above a 4-1 team, even though it is the Colts. That's just kind of how it is. Peach is saying, so the Colts blew the game against the Rams. They didn't blow the game against the Rams. I'm so sick of this. The Rams moved the football with relative ease. Kyron Williams ran the football whenever he wanted. Okay, seriously. I mean, come on now. The Rams are a better football team than the Colts. They just are. I'm sorry. They run the football better. Their pass rush is significantly better than the Colts. Come on. I get it. A.D. Mitchell made 2 mistakes, without a doubt. Okay, but that is not why the Colts lost that game. And guess what? They still had a chance a minute to go. And then Daniel Jones throws a pick. And that's the other thing as well. Like the gap in quarterback play between Matthew Stafford and Daniel Jones, I don't think I have to explain that. That would be another reason why I would 1,000% take the Rams over the Colts. Simple as that. I don't have time to argue that. Joining me here in about 5 minutes, I've got Zach Hicks. We'll talk Colts. We'll talk about kind of where they stand compared to the rest of the NFL. And we'll talk about some potential trades that they could make. On top of it, Zach Hicks, Locked On Colts, joins in about 4.5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hour number 2, getting underway here on a beautiful Tuesday, which is Tuesday, and it's 11 o'clock, which means Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts joins the show. You can check out his YouTube channel as well. Just search for Zach Hicks. Follow him on X at Zach Hicks 2. What's going on, Zach? How are you, man?
Doing pretty good, man. Me coming on your show every single Tuesday here is so much more positive this season than what it was last year, where, it felt like not that I had to make excuses coming in here on Tuesday, but it had to be a lot of rationalizing what went wrong and giving people hope for the next week. This week, it's just, the Colts are good. Colts are good. And that's kind of what I've been saying every single week, I guess, now.
Yeah, they are good. And it's frustrating to hear people be like, but it's the Raiders. It's like they won by 34. Like, they're good.
Yeah.
Something weird happened. The AFC South, the only division with 2 teams that have 4 or more wins. What are just your thoughts on that and the Jags winning last night?
Yeah, I think the AFC South is probably the best AFC division this year. I mean, when you look at the landscape of the AFC right now, I think the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Texans are all going to be in that playoff hunt until the end this year. Jaguars defense is just playing some really good football, and their offense has figured some things out because Liam Cohen's a pretty good coach. And the Texans, I think, are just going to be there because their defense is just a top-tier unit. So as long as they get adequate offensive play, they're going to be in that mix until the end. So, it's on the Colts just to stay on top of things. They don't get to play either of those 2 teams until the final 6 weeks of the season, where they play them 4 out of the final 6 games, along with games against the Seahawks and the 49ers. So that stretch could be 6 games against playoff teams for the Colts to end the season. So that's why it's important for the Colts right now to keep racking up those wins while they can. Not saying that they're absolutely going to lose all 6 of those games or anything, but rack up all the wins they can now, get to 7, 8, 9 wins before that stretch starts, and then it puts less pressure on you to be perfect in what's going to be a pretty good test of games there at the end of the year. But yeah, it looks like the Jags, Texans, and not the Titans, but the Jags and Texans, I think, are going to be pretty solid all season long.
Joined by Zach Hicks to Locked On Colts, talking about the AFC South. I'm with you on the Jags. I just want to see the Houston Texans offense be good, not against the Titans and a very banged up Ravens team.
Yeah, their offense is not going to be great this year. Honestly, I think the benchmark for that offense just to be a fringe playoff team is just being below average, because, again, that defense is holding teams down to nothing this season. And, I mean, they have arguably the best edge rush duo in football. They have a really good secondary, diverse group of linebackers. They're going to get after you all game long, every single game on defense. So the Colts have had good success scoring on them in recent years, and that was before they've had what's gone on this year with their offense. So I'm not horribly terrified of them. But again, I think their quarterback play is still pretty solid on offense. I think they still have some playmakers. And again, that defense is super solid. So I think they're going to be in the conversation for the playoffs by the end of the year. I don't know if they're going to be a surefire playoff team because they have dug themselves in a bit of a hole and their offensive line is a bit of a disaster, but I think they'll be in that conversation for sure.
That's totally fair. I mean, it's amazing what happens to a team's defense when you bring in EJ Speed. Amazing
right.
things happen. Speaking of defense, I don't know how to feel about the Colts defense, because I feel like the 2 times they've played good quarterbacks, they gave up 28 to Bo Nix and they gave up 27 to Stafford. But when they've played these lesser quarterbacks, the defense just doesn't seem to allow anything to happen. How do you feel about this Colts defense through the first 5 weeks?
Yeah, I think honestly, the way that I would view it, I mean, giving up only 17 points a game for the first 5 weeks when it's a very new defensive system, you got some new faces coming in here, and they're trying to they're revamping everything that the Colts have done the last couple years. So allowing just 17 points per game these first couple weeks, having a +5 turnover differential, 7 takeaways on defense through 5 games. I think this is a very, very successful opening quarter of the season for the defense. Obviously, you want them to take one more step forward, find that identity on defense, where they truly win as a unit and find success. But I think that's going to take time when you have such a different system. And honestly, on defense, look at how many moving parts they've had just in terms of rotating starters or rotating significant role players on this. I mean, at linebacker too, they haven't had one guy take that spot. And we went from McGrone and Bocce being the guys early in the season to this past game. It was almost exclusively Chad Muma and Austin Ajake. And, Buddy Johnson just got added to the mix. I know Jermaine Pratt just got released yesterday. So we could see even more moving parts of that. And then an outside corner as well, going from Justin Wally to Branson Womack being cut to Xavier Howard getting a month of play out there just to retire. Now it's on to Mekhi Blackman. Jonathan Edwards is getting some run. Chris Lamont's got some run on this weekend. So they haven't really had much consistency in terms of who's been out there, and they're learning this new system. And they still have only allowed 17 points per game and have, by EPA per play, I think they're the 6th best defense in football right now. And part of that really is who they played because, again, Geno Smith's kind of a mess right now. Tua hasn't been great. And Cam Ward is really struggling too with the Titans. But I mean, look at this Colts defense last year. Drew Lock just tore them apart in week 17 for 350. He had more touchdowns than incompletions in that game. So for them to go from that to where they are now, I'll take them beating up on the bad quarterbacks. I think beating up on the bad quarterbacks and then just being opportunistic against the good ones. That late fumble against the Rams that almost put that game away. The interception against Bo Nix that helped the Colts put that game away. I think that's the key to the success right now. So I think they'll be better come November, December when they solidify some things back there. But in terms of what I expected for them on defense, I would call this first month in a game here of pretty good success for them.
I totally agree. And your point on how bad they were against Drew Lock last year, giving up 45 to Drew Lock, that's not going to happen this year. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He's got a YouTube channel as well, and you can follow him at ZachHicks2 over on X. What'd you make of Kwity Paye playing 0 snaps against the Raiders?
Oh, I didn't even see that. He didn't play any snaps against the Raiders?
Yeah, he didn't play.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a new system, and what we've seen with this Colts defense this season really is, it comes down to who fits the team best, and they're going to reward guys who are showing it, and they're not hesitant to bench players. I mean, look at who was it? It was Cam McGrone got starter snaps in that first week. He's no longer on the team. Joe Bocce made a huge mistake on Sunday, and he got pulled off the field and didn't get a defensive snap the rest of the game. Xavier Howard did retire, but from everything I had heard, he was going to get a pretty big demotion.
Yeah.
And that was part of what factored into the retirement. And heck, you can even go back to the offseason. I mean, guys like Sam Womack and Juju Brents were cut, because they just didn't fit what they wanted to do on defense. So Paye has not had a great start to the season. And I understand it. I totally get it. This defense is about trying to find their identity and find who works for them, and him not playing. I get it. He's struggled this year.
Yeah, it hadn't been great when he's been out there, but man, no snaps. So it's like, geez, that's like you said, they are not afraid to pull guys and limit snaps and do those things. We'll get to AD Mitchell and Ashton Doolin stuff here in a second.
Yeah,
because we're seeing it on offense as well. But I wanted to, so I was talking. I wanted to bring up Kwity Paye to kind of segue into this thing where I read some stuff that I think's a little out there of how people were predicting they're going to trade Kwity Paye. That's why he didn't play. I was like, I don't know about that, but there are obviously some needs for the Colts. If the Colts were to make a trade, I know people are still kind of wishing for Trey Hendrickson. I don't think that's going to happen. But if the Colts were to make a trade, what position would you want to see them add?
Yeah, I think pass rusher would be the most logical one, just because linebacker just isn't as huge of a position in this defense this year. And we've seen that, even with, I would really say Austin Ajake has probably been their best linebacker besides Franklin this year. It hasn't been terrible over the middle of the field there with them. So I think you can just get by just trying to find a guy who really clicks there, and it's all really just about finding the guy who works best. But I think, they'll survive there, especially if they can get Pratt in here, and Pratt's just, knows the system. Then I think they'll be fine at linebacker. Corner, obviously you'd want to trade for a corner just because of how limited they are at that spot right now. But who in the NFL is trading a corner? It's really hard to find a corner out there. Probably the only guy you can get at this point is Tariq Woolen. And if you think Mekhi Blackman's film's bad, don't watch Tariq Woolen's film this season. He looks very checked out right now with the Seahawks. And unless you're fully convinced that you can slap him upside the head and get him back to where he was, I wouldn't really mess with that one there. So I think the most logical one is just pass rusher. And again, who's trading a good pass rusher in the NFL? I get that point, but every team just has so many bodies at pass rusher that you could probably get somebody in here just to give you a little bit more of a boost, especially from these bad teams that might be selling like the Saints or the Browns or teams like that who probably aren't going to make the playoffs this year and probably know it and will accept it. So yeah, I don't think like a Trey Hendrickson trade would happen just because the Bengals are who they are. They don't like trading. They like to let guys walk and have the facade of like, oh man, our little market team couldn't re-sign this guy. Shoot. It's all because of that. No other reason. Like they were going to let T. Higgins walk until the agent gave him an ultimatum saying you have to sign both or neither of these receivers. So yeah, I don't think a Hendrickson thing happens. I think I saw someone talk about Max Crosby as well. I'm like, that's not happening. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like a realistic one could be like a Carl Granderson from the Saints, you know, especially if you throw Pay's contract in there, it would make it so you're basically even for the year on those two contracts. And then you just have to make the money work the next couple of years on his extension. Maybe Malik Collins, the defensive tackle from the Browns, who's having a career season. Like he's got like a 30% pass rush win rate. You'd be buying high on him, but he's been really productive with the Browns, and they'd probably want to sell off on him because I think they have him on a 1-year contract. So like guys like that, I think would make sense, and they would make your room better and make it so your pass rush is not so Leatu, Latu, and DeForest Buckner dependent, because that's kind of what they are right now. It's all blitzes or those two guys. If it's not those two guys getting home, then they have to blitz to get pressure. So they certainly need like one more guy that can just win one-on-one. I think Adetomiwa has shown some good things, but it's not fully there yet. We've seen some decent things from guys like Lewis and Ebukam, but it's not enough juice. So I think, you know, in a week or two, if they're sitting pretty at like 5-1, 6-1, 5-2, whatever it's going to be, I think you look at making a trade for a pass rusher just to get some more juice in the room.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about potential Colts trades. The corner thing is interesting. I think, you know, since the Cowboys were willing to trade Micah Parsons, I do think that they'd be willing to move Trevon Diggs if you like him. A lot of buzz around Greg Newsome maybe getting moved away from the Browns. He's on the last year of his deal. But my thing about corner is the Colts clearly really like Justin Wally. I get that he tore his ACL, but like they know that they kind of have him waiting in the wings. Pass rusher, I throw out names like Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips from Miami. I think those two guys would make a little bit of sense for the Colts as well. But there's another part of me though that's like, do the Colts like need to make a trade? I feel like they're like 4 players away on defense, and even if you bring in a nice pass rusher, I still feel like the ceiling for the Colts remains the same at like they're going to win a playoff game and then probably lose. Like I don't know. I just don't know if it's worth it, you know?
Yeah, I kind of am of two minds with this, where one is, yes, they're probably not like this Super Bowl team this year. Like again, they're playing great football, so it's hard to say that they're not for sure because they're playing so great right now. But you know, we can look at it from just a past history standpoint and stuff and say that like they're not like a favorite or anything like that. But the other aspect of it is the Colts contract situation gets really weird after this season, where they have a lot of contracts expiring, and if Jones is going to keep this level of play up, you're going to have to fit a big quarterback contract on here as well. And that's going to be difficult to do and keep a lot of these guys who are integral to the success this season. So it's not like they're going to have to go into some big rebuild after this year, but they are going to have to make some sacrifices. So it's like, why not try to just push the chips in a little bit this year? As long as like the price tag isn't super high. Like I'm not saying go trade a first for Carl Granderson, but you know, if you can get like, if you can get like a Bradley Chubb in here for like a late round pick swap, you know, that just makes your team better. And who knows? I mean, look, the playoffs are weird where it just like, who knows if like Mahomes goes down with an injury, all of a sudden the AFC is wide open. You know, if quarterbacks get hurt or offensive linemen get hurt, the AFC is wide open, and that's all it takes in the NFL. So yeah, I think if the right move is there for them, go make it. Just don't be desperate to make the move and say like, oh, we need to get a corner. I don't care what pick it takes. We need to go get one. I think that would be wrong because you have to have a broader approach to this stuff. But, again, if there's an opportunity there for like a late round pick swap to get Chubb in here or something, and you think that boosts your pass rush room, then I think that would be smart for the Colts the rest of the season.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about just the balance of the future and making trades now and all those things for Chris Ballard and the rest of that front office. So I think I've done blame pie with you before. I want to flip it though and do credit pie for the Colts offense this year. How do you split up the credit between what Daniel Jones has done, Shane Steichen's play calling, the offensive line, and we'll just throw all the skilled players in one bucket?
Man, that's tough. Honestly, like, I kind of just want to give 25% to each one there. Like maybe I'll take like a 5% off the O-line and give an extra 5 to Jones because, like, again, it's been such a big difference having a quarterback like Jones in there. So let's go like 30, 20, 25, 25 across the board there. But yeah, it's kind of just an offense that's been successful because of everything. Like if you take any part of this equation out, the success would immensely drop. Like the offensive line with the new pieces up front has been really good this year. The skill position players have been consistent, reliable, killing it in their individual skills. And Jonathan Taylor's playing like Jonathan Taylor. Shane Steichen has been so creative and diverse with mixing personnel groups, with giving Jones all the information he needs pre-snap, and just scheming guys open and scheming up matchups. But at the end of the day, the reason I could probably give the most to Jones, and probably, again, the area that I discredited him the most coming into this season, was just how good he is pre-snap at diagnosing what needs to happen, calling out blitz pickups, identifying blitzes, identifying where the ball needs to go at all times, and just being a productive quarterback that way. And we're kind of seeing that that's really just what Shane Steichen needed, was a quarterback who can take the information that he's given him and excel with it. So, I think you guys give the most credit to the quarterback because it's a quarterback-centric league, but so much of this just comes down to everybody. Like, they're not putting up 30-something points a game if the receivers aren't dominating in their individual roles, if Taylor's not going crazy every single weekend, if the O-line's not blocking, if Steichen's not giving Jones these easy buttons, and if Jones isn't taking that information and making it easy buttons. So it's kind of just been this perfect mashup of everything right now for this Colts offense, and that's why we're at a point where it's like hard to find a negative on that side of the ball right now.
It really is. Like when you look at the needs for the Colts, it's like, they're good everywhere on offense. I feel pretty good about it. And it's just been, like you said, it's just been nice to watch the Colts play with a quarterback who makes the easy things look easy. And that's not really like it's not a shot at Anthony Richardson. Like, it's just like Carson Wentz had moments where the easy things looked really hard, even though he looks kind of good in Minnesota. I'm working on a take where it's like, don't draft a quarterback, just wait for the Vikings to get rid of one.
Right. And then take that quarterback afterwards. But no, it's like you said, it's not a shot at Richardson, because if you look around the league, like, quarterback play fundamentally right now is not at it's at a great level from just a talent perspective. These quarterbacks around the league are so dang talented and so great at what they're doing, but from like a pre-snap processing, from a information gathering, and from just knowing where to go with the ball, you do see a lot of ups and downs across the league. And I think Jones has been unique this year just in his ability to be so consistent with what he's seeing pre-snap, where the ball needs to go, and getting that ball out. Like, he's missed some reads here for sure this season, but to me, he kind of just looks a lot like those pocket passing quarterbacks I saw back when I was a kid, watching in the early to mid 2000s, where it's like, you're not seeing them reinvent the wheel and running around like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen every single Sunday, but they're just so productive at moving the ball up and down the field, getting hot against the blitz, knowing how to attack zones and stuff. And it's been really good to watch, and I think, again, you don't really get the flash, but instead of the flash, you get the production. You get the 6 straight touchdown drives on a Sunday. So yeah, he's just playing quarterback at such a high level, cerebrally, or whatever the term is for that, with his brain right now on Sundays. And it's been great to see. And the Colts offense is thriving because of it.
It is. It's just, after every game, someone asks Coach Steichen, "Hey, Coach, like, what'd you think of Daniel Jones' performance?" And Shane Steichen always says the same thing. I thought he was really efficient. And that's the best way to describe the offense so far this year. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He also has a YouTube channel. Just go search for Zach Hicks. You can follow him on X as well at Zach Hicks 2. I freaking love Ashton Doolin, man. Like, he's just tough and he's reliable. And, it's like he's everything that AD Mitchell isn't. And so they're not going to bury AD Mitchell for forever because he's just too talented to do that. But like if they wanted to keep Ashton Doolin in there for a couple more weeks, like I wouldn't have any issue with that based off of how he played on Sunday.
Yeah, it's so interesting because someone like Doolin, like the right analogy for it, you could find an analogy in every single sport. It's the TJ McConnell versus the Benedict Mathurin kind of debacle where like Mathurin, you get the highs and lows, and Mathurin's probably more talented than McConnell, but man, every time McConnell gets out there, you know what you're getting. You know what kind of basketball player you're getting. Or to bring it to like a hockey reference, you're this talented kind of aloof first liner that can score 30, but not be a full ice, like offensive defense guy versus a third liner who's scrappy and can get you some points here and there and stuff like that. Like very, very different players. But I think a lot of it has to do with just the path these guys have had to take to get where they are. And Doolin being a D2 school, undrafted free agent, his school was so small that it doesn't exist. It doesn't play football anymore. There's no more football program at his college that he came from. Broke every single record there, and then the football program shut down. And he had to fight for everything in the NFL. He was a super productive wide receiver in college, had to come in here and just be a special teamer for his first couple of years, and with the occasional jet sweep coming his way on offense. And he's had to fight for everything. And now he's one of the best gunners in football. He's a utility receiver that knows all positions like the back of his hand. And he's gotten a lot better even as a route runner and as a pass catcher too. So, you get a player like that. And then a guy like AD Mitchell, who's 22, 23 years old, has been a 4 or 5 star recruit at the top programs in college, always been pretty productive, but you could see like the gaps there. And, now it's really on him to kind of go through what Doolin went through and have to fight for everything to keep his job. And the reason why guys like Doolin stick out to everyone are because it's rare. It's rare to have a player do what Doolin has done and just fight so hard to get where he is and do what he does on Sundays. So now it's on a guy like Mitchell, even though he's a second round pick, he's going to get more chances. It's on him to bring that same rare work ethic and rare ability to just grind it out that Doolin has brought to the Colts. But I like the decision to go to Doolin on Sunday, and I kind of likened it a lot to the picking Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson coming into the year, where it's like it's not really a punishment of Mitchell. I know a lot of people see it that way, but for me, it's like it's not really a punishment, but it's more so of we can't live with a young player's highs and lows right now. We have this hardworking guy who's just ready to go right behind him, and we need wins. So for as much as we like that AD Mitchell was able to get us 90-something yards on Sunday, we can't live with the holding penalties. We can't live with the drop touchdowns. We need to go with a guy who maybe he doesn't give us 90 yards, but he'll give us 55 yards and a ton of just good moments in between that and a lot of good, reliable play elsewhere. We'll reward him, and because he'll reward us if we put him on the field. So I know a lot of it does come off like a punishment, and I'm sure part of it was, but for me, it was more so just let's get the high floor guy out there who helps us win games. And that's what the Colts did on Sunday. So yeah, I love seeing a player like Doolin rewarded. I remember back in 2019, 2020, writing all these articles all the time about how Doolin was a little cockroach that you can never cut or kill from this team. Like he just makes himself, like, again, with all the Mike Straughns and the Darius Fountains and, Deion Kane type guys who came in here, the guy who kept beating them out every single summer was undrafted free agent Ashton Doolin because he just made himself indispensable. And I think he's a lesson for all young players coming to the NFL. Be like Ashton Doolin. And I mean, that's what Tyler Goodson had to do. And he's been able to make the Colts team the last 3 years as well. He's learned a lot from a guy like Doolin being a special teamer, being an all around guy. And I think all young players around the league should look at a guy like Doolin. And that's kind of the model of what you want to be in this league.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about Ashton Doolin playing over AD Mitchell this last week. Last topic for you, Zach, and then I'll let you go. I made a list earlier today of the teams that I feel like are better than the Colts. Who who are the teams that like when they come to your mind, you're like, I like the Colts, but I don't think that they're definitely not better than these teams. Who are those teams for you?
Man, definitely not better than. I don't know if there's many that I can say definitely right now, just because the Colts offense is such a wagon right now.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. Like it's hard to put them over the Bills because of Josh Allen, but I would say the Colts have played better than them this season, or like the Rams come to mind because they just beat the Colts. But I mean, the Colts are right there in that game. And I think if you're on a neutral field or the Colts are at home even in that matchup, I think it's a different story. So I think the Eagles would be a tough fight for them just because the trench battle, they could probably lose the trench battle. And that's such a big thing for the Colts. So the Eagles, Lions just have so much skill position players. Lions, I think, would be up there. Definitively better than the Colts. I think those two. I think you have a good argument with like the Bills, the Jaguars, the Chiefs. I would still put up there. The Rams. I think they're all in like a similar tier with the Colts, but it's hard for me to say like teams that are definitely better than the Colts. I think this Colts team is pretty darn good.
They are pretty darn good. I wrote down 9, and that did not make people happy.
Yeah,
especially 2 in particular. I agree on the Bills. It's like if you have Josh Allen and the other team doesn't, good luck. Like that's just
right.
And that's a history-based thing. Like they beat everybody not named the Chiefs, and it's because the Chiefs have Mahomes. I know they're 2-3. I wrote them down as well, and that's just a principle thing of the Chiefs have to be dead and buried for 4 days before I'm like, all right, they're done.
I agree.
I wrote Philly down, just for the same reason that you did. Just the trenches really good. I wrote the Lions down as well because they're as good as the Colts offense has been. The Lions has been better. They're leading the league in scoring. I wrote Green Bay down.
Green Bay would beat the Colts, I think. I don't know if they're a better team, but I think they would beat the Colts because that defense is just nasty. I think they would give the Colts some issues. But, I'd put them on like a similar tier, but I think they would beat the Colts if that makes sense.
Yes, that's kind of how I felt about it, just because, like you said, the defense is a little more reliable. I wrote the Seahawks down. I feel like they are the Colts with a better defense.
Yeah, I could see that. Man, I think that would be that's going to be a fun game late in the season because I think the Colts are at home for that game against them.
It's in Seattle.
No, it's in Seattle. Okay,
yeah.
Do the Colts get the Niners at home then?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I
that
knew
game,
they got one of those two at home.
Yeah. The Niners are the weirdest 4-1 team ever.
Yeah. Right.
And then I wrote down the Buccaneers, and that's just because Baker Mayfield's been awesome.
The Bucs are tough because they have those 4 wins, but they're all so fluky. Like they're all reliant on special teams mistakes by the other team and last second scores for them.
Yeah.
And I know they're doing it with a really injured roster right now, but I feel like there's a lot of unsustainability with that. So I want to see how they look over the course of the whole year, but Baker is a dog. So Baker's awesome.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And then these are the two that made everyone upset. I wrote down the Rams, which people didn't like. And then, and then I wrote down Denver, and the defense, like that defense is really good.
Yeah.
With that being said, like the Colts put up 29 on that defense, which to me is all you need to know about the Colts offense. But then, like I've seen leveraging called once all year, and it's the only time I've seen it. And so that felt a little fluky. And then I said that, and people were like, well, wasn't the Rams win a little fluky? I was like, not in the same way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think my pushback on that would be, like, I think I would view it as which team was the better team in both of those games. And I think for the Rams game, even though a lot of fluky things went against the Colts, I think the Rams were still the better football team in that one. The Colts offense was very up and down, had a lot of mistakes. And even though they had a chance to win that game, I thought the Rams just in general were a little bit better in that game. The Broncos game, though, I thought the Colts were the much better football team in that one. I mean, the Colts got to the red zone 6 times. in that game. They didn't punt in the game. They just stalled out in the red zone a couple of times. So I think if you play that game over 10 times, I don't think the Colts stall out in the red zone as much. And I think that they put up even more points. So yeah, the leveraging call did make it look like the Colts got bailed out. But I thought, honestly, if they would have lost that game, it would have been them kind of just blowing a game they should have won. Even though the Broncos offense moved the ball pretty well in that game, I just thought the Colts offense was so much better overall. So I think I would certainly put them over the Broncos. I understand your take on the Rams, though. I think the Rams were just a better football team. I think that it would be a different story if the Colts were the home team, but we can't just rewrite history like that. They were at LA, and the Rams were better there. But I think that they would be like on a similar tier because I think so much of that matchup comes down to who the home team is.
I think the Broncos are the same way. That game was interesting just because I felt like the difference in that game was Bo Nix threw a pick and Daniel Jones didn't. Like I feel like it's a lot of these teams feel like they're in the same tier, and I think it's really just what do you prefer? I'm a natural like defensive minded person in terms of football. And I really like the Broncos defense. That being said, 29 points from the Colts in that game is still really, really insane. So we'll see. It's a long season. If the Colts stay healthy, that has been the other thing about the Colts this year that's been so impressive. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. They're healthier than like everybody right now, and that is such a big deal for them going forward because we've talked about the lack of depth in certain spots.
Yeah, they have been a little bit healthier this year. We'll see. We're gonna get a Grover Stewart update this week, which will hopefully it's not like a serious injury with him. But I mean, they've had their fair share of injuries they've had to fight through. Kenny Moore being out for a couple weeks, Alec Pierce being out, Matt Gonsalves missed that one game, which was crucial against the Rams. Whatever the heck's going on at outside corner, everybody getting hurt there. So they've had their injuries, but I agree with you. It's not like on the same level of like the Ravens can't field a team right now, and the Buccaneers can barely field a team, and they're still winning somehow with theirs. So I do agree that like I wouldn't say it's like the worst injury luck or anything like that, but they've had a couple pretty big injuries, but they've avoided them at like the major guy. Like Tyler Warren hasn't missed a game. Neither of their tackles have missed a game. Daniel Jones has been healthy. Those are the keys, right? If Jonathan Taylor's been healthy, that's a huge one too. So luckily they've kept a lot of the like very, very key players healthy. So we'll see if that continues going forward, but obviously it won't because that's just how the NFL season goes.
Yeah. Unless you're Philly, then you get to start all 22 of your week one starters in your first playoff game. That's what they did last year, which is just absurd. Zach, thanks for your time, man.
Yep, thanks for having me, buddy.
See ya. That is Zach Hicks. You can check him out on X at ZachHicks2. Check out his YouTube page, and, of course, check out Locked On Colts as well. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Colts, how much do they have to worry about Jacksonville? I'll tell you how much. 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app from 14:30 a.m. if you're just cruising around the Indianapolis area. Colts are 4-1, and so are the Jacksonville Jaguars. The AFC South has two teams that have 4 wins. That's just absurd to me. And what's even more absurd is how it happened. I don't know if you watched Monday Night Football last night, but the game felt over because you're sitting there and you're watching, and the Chiefs take the lead, and it's like, Trevor Lawrence, is he really going to put together this game-winning drive? Is he really going to be able to do it? And then it looks like the answer is going to be no. The drive gets off to this terrible start. There's a nice return, but there's a hold, and they have to bring it back. And then on first and second down, they throw these two, incompletions. And then third down, Trevor Lawrence makes a throw where you're like, oh, that's why he was the number 1 overall pick. Down the sideline, couldn't have handed the football better to Brian Thomas Jr. Like if Trevor Lawrence had walked down the field and handed it to him, he'd have put it in the exact same spot where he threw it. He catches it, he runs out of bounds. Next play, Trevor Lawrence from the right hash makes a beautiful throw to the left sideline, puts it right on his guy on a line. It's a beautiful throw. They're inside the 10. Spags, saves his blitz for third down. They bring it. Trevor Lawrence, throws it up to give Brian Thomas Jr. a chance. Brian Thomas Jr. gets interfered with. And then, the next thing you know, Trevor Lawrence is going to run play action, gets stepped on by his offensive lineman, has time to stand up, break a tackle, and then run into the end zone. Just incredible. And what was crazy about it is they gave the ball back to the Chiefs with 23 seconds left and 3 timeouts. And I was like, it's not going to matter. They're going to win. They're going to lose the game after all of this because you left too much time for Patrick Mahomes. So I had two takeaways from the game last night. One, Jacksonville is good. That is a good defense. Devin Lloyd, really good player at linebacker. He's the one who had the pick 6. Josh Hines-Allen is still a really good edge rusher. They clearly missed Travon Walker, former number 1 overall pick out of Georgia. He didn't play last night. They clearly missed him. Their pass rush just kind of goes to another level whenever he's playing. So they missed him, but it's a very good defense. The offense for the Jags is getting there. That was by far the best game that Trevor Lawrence had played. He went into that game last night only having completed 58% of his passes on the year. He was 25 for 30. No, he was 18 for 25 throwing the football last night. And so the offense for Jacksonville is clearly headed in the right direction. The question is just going to be, is it going to be good enough to outscore the Colts? Because the Colts are going to score points against anybody, even this Jacksonville defense that's playing as well as just about any other defense in football right now. So that was one of my takeaways. The Jags are good. The other thing I noticed, Trevor Lawrence did the thing we haven't seen Daniel Jones do yet, and that's lead a big-time drive down the field late in the game when the opposing team knows you're throwing the football. That's still the one thing we haven't seen Daniel Jones do. He's done everything else, and hopefully the Colts just keep beating teams 40-6. That way we don't have to worry about Daniel Jones, putting together a game-winning drive. So those are my very brief takeaways. I was asked over on X, just kind of my thoughts on the Jags. They're a good team, and they're going to push the Colts for who wins the AFC South. So those games way later on in the year are going to be a blast. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Colts are good, but they've got a couple of issues, and they showed up again on Sunday against the Raiders. The pass rush has to be fixed. It has to be fixed. More on that in 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And if you want a little bit more from me, you can go check out My Take Is over on YouTube, all that good stuff. So the Colts pass rush just continues to be disappointing. I know they had 4 sacks against, Geno Smith and the Raiders on Sunday, but I just didn't think that their pass rush was very consistent. Part of that was it felt like the Raiders were going to a lot of quick games, so that obviously had an impact. If the quarterback is getting rid of the football quickly, then you're not going to have as many sacks. That's just the reality of it. So that obviously had an impact, but on 3rd and long, it just felt like the Colts couldn't consistently get home with 4. It seemed like they had to run a stunt or bring a blitz to get home against a bad offensive line who didn't have their starting left tackle. After the Rams game, where the Colts pass rush was very consistent and very good in that game, I thought we were going to have back-to-back weeks of the Colts pass rush being impactful for a full game. And we didn't get that. And part of that was Leatu Latu just wasn't as good. He didn't jump off the screen like he did against the Rams. He had the interception off of the tipped pass, which is cool. Love that. Aside from that, though, I didn't really notice him. The pass rush against the Rams was consistent. And that's because Leatu Latu was consistent. He just wasn't against the Raiders. And, the Colts have a lot of issues. Okay, I don't know how they're going to fix their linebacker problem. That cornerback number 2 slot isn't great. But one thing that would help fix a lot of them is getting Leatu Latu going. Finding a way, or him, because, when it comes to pass rushing, that's a you thing. Him finding a way to consistently generate pressures. That will do major work towards not only fixing the pass rush, but also covering up the lack of talent at the cornerback number 2 slot. That has to be fixed. If the Colts want to be a team who can do more than just win a playoff game, because that's where I think they're at right now. If they want to do more than just win a playoff game, they have to figure out a way to rush the passer on a more consistent basis. Maybe that's, more Adetomiwa snaps. I don't know what it is, but they've got to find a way to pressure the quarterbacks more, because the Colts are 4-1, and you don't need, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL to win a Super Bowl. It certainly helps. It certainly makes it much, much easier. But, the Eagles won it last year with Jalen Hurts, and Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls, and Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, and Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. You can find these examples of quarterbacks in the NFL that aren't necessarily elite, but still good, like Daniel Jones has been this year. You can find examples of those teams winning the Super Bowl. And personally, I put Daniel Jones this year on that Jalen Hurts tier of quarterbacks. He's not Josh Allen, he's not Lamar, he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not Joe Burrow. But when he's surrounded by the right pieces, like Jalen Hurts was last year, you can win a playoff game with him. That's the reality of Daniel Jones. We've seen it before. He won a playoff game in New York because he was surrounded by the proper things. It also does help that they played Kirk Cousins. But anyway, to beat those elite quarterbacks when you don't have an elite quarterback yourself, like the Colts always had a chance against the Patriots because they had Peyton Manning. Okay, but in order to beat those elite quarterbacks when you don't have one, is you have to have a real pass rush. And the Colts don't have that right now. That is the one thing keeping them, I think, outside of the next tier of teams in the NFL. Leatu Latu has to find a way to be more consistent getting after the passer. The Colts have to be willing to play Adetomiwa. He was a large part of their success against the Rams because he was on the field. And you actually have to block that dude. Like they have to find a way to generate pressure with 4. And that is the next step for this Colts team, because when they play, the Chiefs in week 12, you can't blitz Mahomes. You can't. He'll tear you to shreds, right? Like in 2 weeks, they're going to play the Chargers on the road, and maybe Joe Alt will be back at that point. If he is, like, you can't blitz Justin Herbert. If you do, he's going to tear you to shreds. Okay, when they go play Sam Darnold in Seattle, Sam Darnold's been awesome this year. Same thing. The Colts have to find a way to get pressure with 4 at some point during this season. And if they don't, then it's just going to be much, much tougher, and they're going to be much more turnover reliant on defense than what they want to be. It's the reality of it. So we'll see how they do. Look, Louis Anarumo has done an excellent, excellent job of just making this defense better than what it was last year. I'm sure he's got some sort of solution to help this Colts pass rush, because it needs help a lot. And so we'll see what they do going forward. But that just feels like the one thing kind of holding the Colts back from being a little bit more of a contender. Because if they had a real pass rush, if they brought in, a Trey Hendrickson, which isn't going to happen, but if they did, you'd instantly feel way better about this Colts defense and their ability to get off the field on third down. Letting the Rams go 8 of 14 on third down is not great. But hey, plenty of time left in the year for Latu to figure it out, and for the rest of these Colts pass rushers. That's going to do it here on The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune in, no matter how you tuned in, whether that was YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, you can also subscribe to My Take Is over on YouTube as well. That's my own little personal channel where I do a lot more stuff than just Colts stuff. So you feel free to go check that out. You can follow me on X. You can watch the show on X at _ Jonathan Smith. And of course, go download that Indy Sports Ticket app so you can listen to the Dan Dockett Show every Monday through Friday from noon to 3. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Armando Salguero is set to join the show at 1:30. And I'm sure we'll start looking ahead a little bit to IU and Oregon and all the other big-time football things, because Indiana is a football state now, between the Colts and the Hoosiers just tearing it up every single weekend. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.